Welcome back to Crime Scene Rundown, the channel where we uncover the darkest and most ingenious criminal plots. Today we're counting down the top 10 criminal masterminds who nearly got away. From braided conspiracies to lone wolves, these schemers slipped through the cracks. Almost. Number 10, Willie Sutton. Willie Sutton, nicknamed Slick Willie, began his life of crime in the roaring 1920s with a simple goal: empty the vaults without an ounce of violence. He preferred the daylight, walking into banks in a suit and tie, carrying nothing more threatening than a canvas bag. His secret? Blending in, observing the teller's routines, the guard rotations, even which vault door clicked most quietly. Over 3 decades, he stole well over $2 million, adjusting for inflation a small fortune. Sutton never drew a weapon. He believed intimidation worked harder than any gun. He was first arrested in 1921, then escaped from Auburn Prison in New York less than a year later by shaving his way out with a makeshift razor. 2 more successful breakouts followed, each time embarrassing law enforcement and boosting his legend. His final capture in 1952 came when a railroad employee recognized him boarding a freight train. Even behind bars afterward, Sutton remained a folk hero. His autobiography sold well, and his name entered popular culture. Law enforcement studied his techniques, and the FBI revamped undercover tactics as a direct response. To this day, Sutton's polite heists and prison Houdini acts remain textbook examples in criminology courses. Number 9, Frank Abagnale Jr. Frank Abagnale Jr. turned youthful boredom into one of history's most audacious con careers. At just 16, he began forging checks, netting thousands by exploiting handwriting quirks and bank processing delays. Not content with petty fraud, he padded his resume with stolen identities, becoming Pan Am pilot Frank Taylor to snag free flights and layovers in Paris and Madrid. His uniform and confidence opened doors: hotels, cockpits, even executive lounges. From there, he impersonated a pediatrician at a Georgia hospital, ordering rounds and shaving his stubble to fit in. By age 20, he'd served brief stints in 5 countries' jails, always charming his way out on bail or furlough. His downfall began when French authorities detected anomalies in a stack of phony checks and alerted the FBI. Betrayed by paperwork errors and a fading alias, he surrendered in 1965. Rather than throw away his talents, the U.S. government offered him a deal: use his skills to help catch other fraudsters. Over the next 30 years, Abagnale advised the FBI on forgery, security, and identity theft, transforming from most wanted to most wanted consultant. His story inspired the film Catch Me If You Can, but for Abagnale, the true thrill was turning a life of crime into a career in justice. Number 8, Adolf Eichmann. Adolf Eichmann was the industrial organizer of the Holocaust logistics machine, designing rail schedules that transported millions to concentration camps. When Germany fell in 1945, he slipped through Allied checkpoints using forged papers and a network of sympathizers known as the Rat Lines. Assuming the alias Ricardo Clemon, he boarded a ship to Argentina in 1950 and settled into suburban Buenos Aires. There he lived as a quiet father of 4, working at a Mercedes-Benz plant and rarely venturing into the spotlight. For a decade, his face never appeared on a most wanted list, his crimes obscured by bureaucracy. In 1960, Israeli intelligence received a credible tip and began tracking the Clement household. A team of Mossad agents staked out his home, confirming his identity by observing his voice and mannerisms. In a covert night raid, they sedated Eichmann and smuggled him out in a raincoat, hidden under a seat cushion on an El Al flight to Tel Aviv. His subsequent 1961 trial was a global media event, the first time survivors' testimonies painted a full picture of genocide. Eichmann's meticulous record-keeping and bureaucratic detachment stunned the world, forcing new debates on individual responsibility versus following orders. His execution in 1962 closed the chapter on one of history's most methodical architects of mass murder. Number 7, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. Ted Kaczynski, a former math prodigy at Harvard, renounced society to live off the grid in a one-room cabin in Montana. From 1978 to 1995, he mailed or hand-delivered a series of letter bombs that killed 3 people and injured 23 more across the United States. His devices were handmade, ticking boxes rigged with nails, acid, and batteries, each showing a high level of mechanical proficiency and concealment. Unlike other domestic terrorists, he issued a 35,000-word manifesto titled Industrial Society and Its Future, demanding the collapse of modern technology. The FBI codenamed the investigation UNABOM, University and Airline Bomber, deploying over 150 agents and using both forensic and linguistic analysis. His downfall came when his brother, David, recognized stylistic parallels between the published manifesto and Ted's private letters, tipping off authorities. In April 1996, FBI agents surrounded his cabin and arrested him without resistance. At trial, Kaczynski pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty, receiving life without parole. Decades later, the Unabomber case remains a milestone in forensic linguistics and behavioral profiling. His calculated isolation and ideological fervor turned a remote shack into ground zero for one of the longest manhunts in U.S. history. Number 6. Whitey Bulger. James Whitey Bulger rose to power in Boston's Irish mob by ruthlessly eliminating rivals and forging alliances with corrupt police and political figures. In the 1970s and 80s, he acted as an FBI informant, tipping off agents about rival gangs while shielding his own empire from prosecution. When federal prosecutors closed in during a 1994 sweep, Bulger slipped out of his South Boston apartment into the urban labyrinth. For 16 years, he lived under aliases in Santa Monica and Santa Ana, California, frequenting poker games, Scottish pubs, and even yoga studios. He dyed his hair and eyebrows, grew a beard, and adopted a quiet demeanor, fooling neighbors and local law enforcement. Despite an $800,000 bounty, tips only dribbled in. Bulger's network of loyalists kept his secrets safe. His capture on June 22, 2011, came after an anonymous tip placed him at an apartment complex clubhouse. When agents served the warrant, Bulger was watching The Departed on television, a film loosely based on his criminal career. He went on to be convicted of racketeering, extortion, and multiple murders, receiving 2 life terms plus 5 years. The Bulger saga exposed deep corruption within the FBI's Boston office and remains one of America's most notorious tales of betrayal. Number 5. Bernie Madoff. Bernard L. Madoff built a reputation as a Wall Street titan, founding his investment firm in 1960 and chairing the NASDAQ exchange in the 1990s. He promised investors consistent, above-market returns, leveraging his status and industry connections to draw in billions, from retirees to charitable foundations. Madoff's operations relied on a classic Ponzi scheme. New investors' funds paid purported returns to earlier clients, masking the absence of real trades. Over decades, red flags emerged: odd trading records, secretive accounting, and refusal to allow audits. But regulators never pushed hard enough to pierce the veil. His downfall arrived in late 2008 when the global financial crisis triggered a wave of redemptions he couldn't cover. On December 10, 2008, Madoff confessed to his sons that the business was one big lie, prompting their tip to federal authorities. The next day, FBI agents raided his Manhattan penthouse, seizing computers and documents. He was arrested, charged with 11 felonies, and eventually sentenced to 150 years in prison. Investigations estimated clients lost around $65 billion. The Madoff scandal reshaped securities regulations, prompting stricter oversight and whistleblower protections. His name has become synonymous with financial betrayal, and his victims' stories continue to echo in courtrooms worldwide. Number 4. D.B. Cooper. On November 24, 1971, a man calling himself Dan Cooper boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle, carrying only a briefcase and a newspaper. Mid-flight, he handed a stewardess a note demanding $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes, claiming he had a bomb. After landing in Seattle and collecting the ransom, he released the passengers but kept several crew members on board. He then ordered the pilot to climb to 10,000 feet, head toward Mexico, and slow to 145 knots. Somewhere over the rugged forests of southwestern Washington, Cooper opened the aft stairs and parachuted into the pitch-black night, never to be seen again. The FBI launched Norjack, a massive manhunt with skydivers, trackers, and ground teams scouring muddy fields and dense timber. Searches turned up a few items: shoelace fragments, some tie-down clips, but no definitive trace of Cooper or the full ransom. Dozens of suspects emerged over the years, from ex-paratroopers to career criminals, but each lead fizzled. In 1980, a boy found $5,800 of deteriorated bills along the Columbia River, fueling more speculation but no closure. D.B. Cooper's audacity and the seemingly effortless vanishing act have cemented him as the only unsolved hijacker in U.S. aviation history. To this day, amateur sleuths and FBI cold case units revisit the files, but the man's true identity and fate remains the country's greatest airborne mystery. Number 3, Joaquin El Chapo Guzmán. Joaquin El Chapo Guzmán began as a low-level trafficker in the Sinaloa region of Mexico. But by the early 2000s, he controlled a vast network smuggling tons of cocaine, meth, and heroin into the United States. His cartel used bribery, intimidation, and unprecedented tunnel systems, some over a mile long, equipped with rail tracks and ventilation, to move drugs beneath the border. El Chapo's ruthlessness was legendary. Rival bosses were tortured, dismembered, and displayed as warnings to others. First captured in 1993, he escaped a Mexican prison by hiding in a laundry cart, an escape so brazen it embarrassed the government. Recaptured in 2014, he managed again to flee, this time through a half-mile tunnel dug into his cell's shower area. His second manhunt was equally intense, involving U.S. Marshals and Mexico's Navy. Finally seized in 2016 at a beach resort in Los Mochis, he was extradited to the United States in 2017. In 2019, a Brooklyn federal court convicted him on multiple charges, including drug trafficking and money laundering, sentencing him to life plus 30 years. His imprisonment exposed the cartel's inner workings. Ledgers, encrypted phones, and witness testimonies peeled back decades of smuggling techniques. El Chapo's legacy endures in the shifting dynamics of cartel power and the ongoing drug war that spans continents. Number 2, Ilich Ramirez Sanchez, Carlos the Jackal. Born in Venezuela in 1949, Ilich Ramirez Sanchez embraced leftist causes early, joining the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine in the late 1960s. By the mid-1970s, he had become Carlos the Jackal, orchestrating high-profile attacks, from assaulting the OPEC headquarters in Vienna to bombings in Paris and kidnappings in Netherlands. He was a ghost. His physique changed often, his aliases spanned dozens, and he spoke multiple languages fluently. Interpol issued its first red notice specifically for him, igniting an international manhunt spanning Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Intelligence agencies from Mossad to the KGB exchanged tips and dossiers, yet he slipped away through safe houses and coded communications. His downfall came in 1994 when he was tracked to a safe house in Khartoum. French agents kidnapped him in a tactical raid. Extradited to France, he received a life sentence for murder and terrorism, now serving in a maximum security prison. His operations pioneered modern transnational terror tactics, coordinated cell structures, encrypted radio networks, and high-impact symbolic targets. Carlos's grim legacy influenced groups from IRA splinter cells to modern jihadist organizations, embedding his tactics into the playbooks of global terror. Number 1, the Zodiac Killer. Between December 1968 and October 1969, a serial killer terrorized Northern California with at least 5 confirmed victims, and possibly more. He earned the moniker Zodiac from self-addressed letters sent to Bay Area newspapers, each containing cryptic ciphers and arrogant taunts. His first confirmed murder occurred on Lake Herman Road near Vallejo, where 2 teens were found shot in their car at midnight. Within months, attacks at Blue Rock Springs and Lake Berryessa followed, each displaying escalating boldness. One victim stabbed multiple times, another shot from behind the wheel. His final confirmed killing was cab driver Paul Stein in San Francisco's Presidio Heights. Each letter arrived with partial ciphers. One took amateur cryptographers over 50 years to solve. The Zodiac's communication style, mixing journalism clippings, drawn symbols, and unpredictable deadlines, amplified public panic. Suspect sketches were broad, and witness reports conflicted, making profiling difficult. Despite decades of investigation, law enforcement never conclusively identified him. DNA testing in recent years narrowed the suspect pool, but without a definitive match, the case officially remains open. The Zodiac's blend of random violence, theatrical messaging, and vanishing act influenced every copycat serial killer since, cementing his place as true crime's greatest unresolved puzzle. Down of the top 10 criminal masterminds who nearly got away. Which twist surprised you most? Let us know in the comments, hit like if you learned something new, and subscribe for more deep dives into true crime. Thanks for watching Crime Scene Rundown. See you next time.